Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a slightly different path than usual.
Yeah, definitely a very different path today.
Right, because usually we're looking at, business trends or historical biographies. But today we are digging into a stack of notes that sits right at the intersection of cultural anthropology, psychology, and, to be completely honest, some genuinely unsettling campfire stories.
It really is. It's a wild mix.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, we are heading to Taiwan today to explore their urban legends and this whole concept of Mengyi.
Right. Mengyi, fierce ghosts.
Exactly. And the source material we're working from today comes from a breakdown of a transcript by Mr and Mrs Gao. They discuss Taiwan's most famous supernatural events, and I think what's so fascinating is
how modern it all feels.
Yes, exactly.
We aren't just talking about dusty myths from, the 16th century. We are talking about folklore that was essentially born out of the consumer technology boom of the 1990s.
That was the biggest takeaway for me. I think we tend to assume that science and technology kill superstition. We invent the light bulb, the shadows go away, and the ghosts disappear.
The world gets mapped, and the mystery is gone.
Right. But in Taiwan, specifically with the little girl in Red Legend, the technology didn't kill the ghost story. It actually, it gave the folklore a medium to travel on.
That's a really astute observation, because when folklore is purely oral, it's malleable. It changes with every single telling. But when you capture something on a camcorder, or at least you think you capture something, it gains this veneer of objective reality.
It becomes evidence.
Exactly. It blurs the line between a spooky story and hard evidence. And that is where the terror really takes root for people.
So let's just unpack that first major story, the legend of the little girl in red, or the tag-along. From what I gathered in the notes, this is widely considered the #1 supernatural event in modern Taiwanese history.
Without a doubt.
And it all starts with a very mundane setting. It's just a family hiking trip in 1998.
Right, and I think context is key here. 1998 is the pre-smartphone era. If you wanted to capture a memory, you were lugging around one of those really bulky handheld camcorders.
Oh man, the ones with the tiny little tapes.
Yes, exactly. The resolution was terrible, the lighting was often poor, and the tapes themselves were incredibly prone to glitching or degrading.
So this family goes hiking in the Taichung Docking Scenic Area. It's a popular spot, usually pretty crowded on weekends. They film the hike, everything seems totally normal. But the inciting incident for the whole legend happens shortly after they get home.
Yeah, a tragedy strikes the family.
Right, one of the family members who went on the hike passes away suddenly due to a sudden illness.
Which, while awful, isn't necessarily supernatural, but grief makes us look for meaning. The family decides to watch the tape to see, the last happy moments of their relative, and that is when the narrative completely shifts from tragedy to horror.
Because they spot two anomalies on the tape. The first one is classic glitch in the Matrix stuff. There's a shot of the family member who passed away. He's smiling, having a great time, but in the footage, his mouth appears distorted. Almost like he has fangs.
It's a very jarring visual. Now, from a technical standpoint, old magnetic tape is notoriously unreliable. You get pixelation, motion blur, magnetic degradation. All of these things can create really weird visual artifacts.
But for a grieving family.
Exactly. For them, that distortion looks like a premonition. It looks like the mark of death.
But it's the second anomaly that really drove this story into the national consciousness. Because trailing behind the group on the mountain trail, there is a figure. She's wearing bright red clothes, and based on her height, she looks like a child, maybe 11 or 12 years old.
But the face doesn't match.
Not at all. When the camera catches a glimpse of her face, it's terrifying.
The description is deeply unsettling. The face appears elderly. It has this blue-green skin, deep hollow eyes. It's a total visual paradox.
Yeah.
And this touches on something psychologists call the uncanny valley. When something looks human, but not quite human, it triggers a very deep evolutionary revulsion in our brains. An old face on a young body hits that trigger incredibly hard.
And the kicker is that no one on the hike actually saw her. The notes point out that wearing bright red in a lush green mountain forest is incredibly conspicuous. You would notice a person like that instantly.
You couldn't miss them.
Right, so the family is terrified, they ask around, nobody knows who she is. Eventually they send the tape to a popular supernatural TV show in Taiwan.
And this is where it goes from a weird family legend to a massive cultural phenomenon. The story goes that the video editor for the TV show actually quit halfway through the job.
Really? just walked away.
Yeah, he was reportedly too disturbed by the footage to keep looking at it, and when it finally aired, it caused a nationwide sensation.
It basically went viral before the internet really existed. It's so interesting to look at the mass psychology of that moment. You had people all over Taiwan claiming they had seen her on their own hikes, or they were frantically checking their own home videos.
It created a collective paranoia. They investigated local schools, they asked indigenous communities in the area, but no one could identify a missing child matching that description.
So since a human explanation failed, the culture reverted to folklore to fill the gap. The leading theory that emerged, and this seems like a crucial concept in Taiwanese urban legends, is that she wasn't a ghost at all. She was a Mosian.
Yes, the Mosian.
I found this concept fascinating because it feels very distinct from the Western idea of a demon. A Mosian isn't necessarily trying to possess you or drag you to hell. It's a mountain demon or a nature spirit, and its primary motivation seems to be mischief, or maybe malice disguised as mischief.
Mischief might be downplaying it a bit, but yes. Their modus operandi is psychological disorientation. They inhabit mountains or swamps, and they often appear as children or women to lower your guard. They don't usually attack you physically. Instead, they tag along. They confuse your sense of direction. They lead you off the path.
And this leads to the most disturbing part of the Mosian lore, which is what happens when they catch you. The notes describe victims being found in a trance state. They've been missing for days, but they tell rescuers, "Oh, I was fine. A nice lady took care of me. She gave me delicious chicken legs to eat."
But when the rescuers actually examine the victim, their mouths are full of dirt, mud, literal animal dung, or insects. Things like crickets and beetles.
Ugh, that is so gross.
It really is. The Mosian uses a form of glamour or illusion to disguise literal filth as a feast.
It reminds me so much of Celtic folklore. The Fae. You know, the idea that if you eat the food in the fairy realm, you're trapped forever, or that the shiny gold treasure turns into dry leaves in the morning. It's this universal warning about the deceptive nature of the wilderness.
That's a brilliant connection. At its core, this folklore is a survival mechanism. If you look at the symptoms of someone who has been taken by a Mosian, the disorientation, the hallucinations, eating strange things, these map almost perfectly to severe hypothermia, dehydration, and exhaustion.
Wow, yeah.
The Mosian is essentially a cultural personification of what happens when the mountain breaks your mind.
So if the Mosian is the explanation for getting lost, the folklore also provides the manual for getting found. The notes list some specific survival tactics. First is loud noises. Firecrackers are the traditional remedy to scare them off.
Which makes perfect sense, practically speaking. Loud noises break trances, and they alert search and rescue team.
Right. Second, if you hear your name called in the wild, never answer. That's a classic horror trope right there. But the third one is completely unexpected. Allegedly, Mosian are afraid of nudity, or at least stripping off your clothes might shock the spirit into letting you go.
I know it sounds bizarre, but there is a logic to the shock value. It's about breaking the spell. And interestingly, these beliefs aren't just ancient history. There was a case as recently as 2015 where a 73-year-old woman in Taichung wandered off.
Oh, I read about that in the notes.
Yeah, when she was found kilometers away, she claimed 2 children had led her away to play. The narrative of the Mosian is still the default explanation for unexplained disappearances, especially among the older generation.
It just shows how sticky these stories are. Even with GPS and rescue helicopters, the mountain demon is still the thing people genuinely fear. Now, The Little Girl in Red became a movie franchise later on, The Tag-Along, which added some new mythology about trees and souls. But the core fear that something ancient is watching you from the background of your modern life, that remains exactly the same.
And that theme of nature watching you transitions us perfectly from the mountains to the water. Because in Taiwan's folklore, the water is just as dangerous, if not more so.
Right, which brings us to the fish with the human face. And I have to say, of all the stories in the stack we looked at, this one gave me the most visceral reaction. It's just so biological.
It is deeply grotesque. This legend originates in the mid-90s, around 1994 and 1995, at the Lantern Reservoir in Chiayi City. Now, reservoirs in Taiwan often have a gloomy reputation already. There are frequently sites of accidental drownings and suicides. So the atmosphere is already completely primed for horror.
The setup is almost like a joke. A group of men go fishing, they catch a large tilapia, they decide to grill it right there on the shore. But then the punchline is an absolute nightmare. They hear an old woman's voice speaking in Taiwanese dialect asking, "Is the fish meat tasty?"
And when they look for the source of the voice, they realize it's coming from the grill. The fish's mouth is moving, And on the skin of the fish, as it chars and blisters over the fire, the face of an old woman appears.
It's horrifying. The group reportedly vomited on the spot, which I feel is the only appropriate reaction, and one of them snapped a photo. That photo became famous. The legend then says the man who caught the fish died in his sleep shortly after.
Here again, we see that pattern of evidence. The photo anchors the legend in reality. But if we analyze this rationally, we're likely looking at a phenomenon called pareidolia.
Seeing faces in random patterns.
Exactly. Our brains are hardwired to find faces in chaos. We see faces in clouds, in toast, and yes, in the blistered skin of a grilled fish. If you are already primed by the spooky atmosphere of the reservoir, that pattern recognition just goes into overdrive.
But the cultural interpretation is what really matters here. Why a fish? And why does it talk? The notes mention a fish spirit legend.
Yes. The belief is that these large bodies of water are guarded by spirits. It operates on a scapegoat or exchange dynamic. If you kill a large fish, which might be an agent or avatar of the spirit, a human life is required to balance the scales. It's a karmic transaction. You ate the fish, now the water takes you.
You mentioned in our pre-show chat that this human-faced fish isn't entirely unique to Taiwan, but the reaction to it is very specific.
Precisely. The concept appears in the ancient Chinese text Shanhai Jing, the classic of mountains and seas, as the Chiru. But look at a modern comparison. In Japan, as recently as 2024, there were sightings of a carp with human-like markings on its face.
And how did they react?
People flocked to see it, they took photos, they called it cute, and considered it a lucky omen.
That is a wild contrast. In Japan, it's a tourist attraction. In Taiwan, it's a harbinger of doom.
It demonstrates perfectly that the object itself doesn't matter as much as the cultural lens you view it through. In Taiwan, the reservoir is a place of death and substitution, so the anomaly becomes a severe threat.
Speaking of substitution, that seems to be the heavy theme when we move back up to the high peaks. We talked about the Mozine in the lower forests, but if you go to Yushan Jade Mountain, which is nearly 4,000 meters high, the threat changes entirely. It becomes the Little Flying Heroes.
Yeah, a deceptively cheerful name for a very deadly phenomenon. These are arguably far more dangerous than the Mosian. Hikers report seeing 3 figures standing on cliff edges or at forks in the path during heavy fog. They wear yellow raincoats and wide, conical bamboo hats.
And they aren't hiding. They're actually waving at you. They want you to follow them.
But if you follow them, they don't lead you to safety, they lead you straight off the precipice.
There's a specific origin story for this one involving a cabin manager, right?
Yes, a really chilling account. A manager at a mountain cabin heard knocking late at night. He opened the door to see these 3 yellow-clad figures standing there. He noticed immediately that their faces were pale, completely colorless. When he turned to grab a lantern, they vanished. But the door he had just opened was suddenly locked from the outside.
That detail about the door locking creates this awful sense of entrapment. Now, you mentioned earlier that these aren't Mosian. They fall into a different category called Zuojiaoti. Can we break that down?
Yeah.
Because that term comes up a lot in Asian horror.
Zuojiaoti translates roughly to seizing a substitute. This is a crucial concept in Taoist and Buddhist folk beliefs. The idea is that if you die, a wrongful or premature death, suicide, drowning, falling off a mountain, your spirit is stuck in that exact location. You cannot move on to reincarnation. You are in limbo, endlessly repeating your death loop.
And the only way out of that loop is to find a replacement.
Correct. You must trick or force someone else to die in the exact same way. They take your spot in limbo, and you are free to reincarnate. So the Little Flying Heroes aren't just malicious murderers, they're desperate souls trying to escape their own prison.
That adds such a heavy layer of tragedy to the horror. But looking at this rationally, Yushan is incredibly high, the air is thin. Is there a physiological explanation for why hikers see people in yellow raincoats who aren't actually there?
Absolutely. We were talking about hypoxia, altitude sickness. At 4,000 meters, your brain is severely oxygen deprived. Combine that with physical exhaustion, extreme fear, and the whiteout conditions of mountain fog and hallucinations become very common.
But why yellow raincoats specifically?
It's the most common color for hiking gear. Your brain is trying to make sense of the visual noise in the fog. It pulls from memory hikers wear yellow raincoats, and it literally constructs a figure out of the mist. You are essentially hallucinating help because you are so desperate for it.
That is almost sadder than the ghost story itself. You're lost, you're dying of hypoxia, and your own brain invents 3 friends to guide you. But they guide you over the edge because your spatial awareness is completely gone.
Exactly. It is a tragedy of biology disguised as a ghost story.
We've covered the modern legends now, the ones caught on tape or reported by hikers. The transcript also touches on the traditional folklore, the bedtime stories. And we have to talk about Antiger, Hu Gopo. This sounds a lot like the Taiwanese version of Little Red Riding Hood, but significantly more brutal.
It's a very similar archetype, the wolf grandmother. In the story, a tiger spirit wants to become human, but the prerequisite for that transformation is eating children. So she disguises herself as an elderly relative, a great aunt, to trick children into letting her in while the parents are away.
And unlike the sanitized versions of fairy tales we often get today, the details here are really grim. She sleeps in the bed with two siblings and actually eats the younger one during the night. The older sibling hears crunching and asks, "What are you eating?"
And the tiger aunt replies, "I'm just eating peanuts." She throws a peanut to the older sister in the dark, and it turns out to be the baby's finger.
That is so intense. It's incredibly visceral.
It's designed to be. It's a cautionary tale to ensure absolute compliance from children. Do not open the door to strangers. But the notes point out a fascinating biological plot hole here.
Right. There are no tigers in Taiwan.
Exactly. Tigers have been extinct in Taiwan for millions of years. This tells us that the story is a cultural import. It likely migrated with settlers from mainland China, where tigers were a very real, everyday threat. The story survived and adapted, even though the predator itself wasn't there. It shows that the fear of the predator is much more durable than the predator itself.
Finally, we have one last figure to discuss today. We can't do a deep dive on Asian horror without covering the vengeful female ghost. The notes bring up Lin Tou's sister, or Lin Tou Jie. This feels like a story about societal anxiety just as much as it is about ghosts.
It definitely is. This is a tragedy about betrayal, money, and patriarchy. It's set during the Qing dynasty. A widow, Li Zonyang, is scammed by a friend named Zhu. He seduces her, takes all her money for a supposed business trip to Hong Kong, and then completely abandons her to start a rich new life with a new family.
So she's left utterly destitute, watching her children starve to death. The despair drives her to kill her remaining child and hang herself on a Ling Tu tree, which is a type of screw pine.
And that profound suicide creates a powerful enroa or vengeful spirit. But what's really unique here is the ritual involved in her revenge. She doesn't just stay and haunt the tree forever. A Taoist priest actually sympathizes with her plight. He helps her spirit cross the ocean to find Zhu by attaching her soul to an umbrella.
That image is so specific and cinematic, the ghost traveling by umbrella.
It allowed her to travel across the sea to the mainland. She arrives at Zhu's home during his son's full moon party, which is a moment of peak happiness and lineage celebration. She possesses Zhu, forcing him to kill his new family and then himself. It's total annihilation.
It's the ultimate burn-it-all-down revenge. It feels like this story serves a very clear social function. It's a warning to men who might think about taking advantage of vulnerable widows. You might get away with it legally, but she will literally cross the ocean in an umbrella to get you.
Exactly. It's a supernatural enforcement of moral law. If the courts can't punish the scammer, the ghost absolutely will.
So we've looked at mountain demons, fish with human faces, hallucinatory hikers, and vengeful widows. When you step back and look at this collection as a whole for you, what is the bigger picture? What is the core mission statement of Taiwanese folklore?
I think it reflects a profound respect and fear of the landscape itself. Taiwan is an island of extremes. You have these incredibly high, dense, foggy mountains that can kill you with hypothermia or just a steep drop. You have deep, dangerous waters. The folklore, the Mosian, the fish spirit, is a way of saying, you are not in charge here. The land is alive and it is watching you.
And then you layer the modern technology right on top of that.
That's the modern evolution. We used to tell stories like Aunt Tiger to say, don't go out at night. But with the little girl in red, the message shifts entirely. It becomes, don't trust your eyes, don't trust your screen. We think 4K video and GPS dispel mystery, but in these stories, technology just confirms that the monsters are actually real.
That's the thought I'm going to be stuck with today. We assume that if we can record it, we can fully understand it. But these legends suggest that the clearer the picture gets, the more terrifying the details become.
It certainly makes you want to check the background of your selfies a little more closely from now on.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, maybe take a look at those old family hiking videos you have boxed up. Check the blurry figures in the distance. Or actually, you know what? Maybe don't. Ignorance might just be bliss.
In this case, I would highly recommend ignorance.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the eerie side of Taiwan. Sleep well, and we'll see you in the next one.